Okay. Everyone ready to go?
I think we're on
Stop. Shut up. I know what we're doing. I'm trying to get everything set up on this side. If everyone's ready to go, we'll record a show now. All right? Okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Super Joystiq Podcast for Friday, January 18th. I'm Zev D'Amatos, joined by Mr. Ludwig Kietzman.
Hello.
Oh, so excited. How you doing, man? Jordan Mallory.
Hi.
Hey, slightly more excited, but all right. How about Jess? Jess, you have a lot to build up to here.
Hi.
Jessica Condon.
No, yeah.
No.
I'm not excited to say my own name, thanks.
Oh, I'm always excited to scream my name. Wait, that sounded
weird. Ew.
All right.
This is on to. Oh, okay.
Welcome to our live segment of the Super Joystiq Podcast. This week we're going to be talking about a couple of games, one of which is new, which is Devil May Cry, which Jessica Condit, you reviewed for Joystiq, which everyone seems to agree with that review.
Yeah.
And Letty, I know you've also played quite a bit of it. Did you actually finish the game, or did you only play it preview?
I have not finished yet. I think I'm about 3 missions away from the end. The last mission is called The End, so I know it's the last mission.
You'll figure it out. It's pretty clear when it happens.
Jordan, I know you've been playing Saints Row the Third, which is a game from 2011, but we're going to talk about that because I've also been playing a little GTA 4 with some brand new mods. With some brand new mods, because I want to talk a little bit about those two games so we could talk about what we kind of want for Grand Theft Auto 5. I've also been playing The Room and a couple of other adventure games, but before we get started on all the stuff that came out 17 years ago, why don't we talk about Devil May Cry, brand new reboot for the series. Jess, you really enjoyed it. Why don't you tell us what about the series? Because you're a fan of the series too.
Yes, I am.
What about the game really struck you?
Wait, so first question, what is the best Devil May Cry game in the series?
We've talked about this. I really enjoy 4. But I also very much enjoy 3, and I think that's your favorite.
Yeah, 3 is my favorite one.
And 3 is widely recognized. Yeah, I also enjoyed 4, but that's probably because it was the first one I ever played, so I just have really good memories with it.
2 is the train wreck one.
2 is the one Capcom apologized for, so yeah, we don't want to...
I have good feelings about 4 because I remember making a sandwich while it installed.
That's
I think that was one of the recommendations.
Was that the game that actually recommended you go make a sandwich during the installation screen? Yeah.
Just go take a break. Yeah. Yeah, so no, DMC, the reboot, whatever. I enjoyed the crap out of it. And I'm not the only one, however, it feels like that sometimes on these dark and lonely nights, reading the comments on my review. But I don't know. What do we want to talk about here? Because there are a lot of different aspects that I can go into.
Well, let's start with how the series has rebooted itself and how the story differs in this one from what people may be used to, other than the fact that the character models are different, obviously. But what about the story itself is different? Because the story itself is essentially the same, right?
It's a new take. It's definitely not like a prequel or anything. It is a completely fresh start, and it begins with Dante, who is a Nephilim, for those who don't know. He's half angel, half demon, and he discovers his past, basically. He finds his twin brother Virgil, and they have a little other companion.
Did you find that the first time they meet was a little odd? So, like, they're trying to play up the fact that Dante is very sort of apathetic, like, even in the facial capture they had for him, he just kind of, like, blows off what they're telling him. But his first question isn't like, hey, why do you look like me?
Well, they don't exactly look alike, let's be honest.
They have different hair.
Well, yes, we're not going to talk about that hair, though. I don't know, Virgil's outfits honestly got to me a lot. Like, I laughed when he put the hat on. I laughed out loud. I was like, Virgil, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. So maybe he was trying to cover up how much he looked like Dante with his ridiculous style choices.
Well, based on the reaction to what Dante looks like, that's probably a thing that actually happens in the game, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
what kind of hat are we talking about here? Are we talking about like a fedora?
Like a straight-up fedora. No, it was
like...
a fedora. It was great. It was terrible and great. But they do keep, like, Virgil was decked out in blue, and he has his classic Yamato sword. He always said it weird in the game, I thought. It sounded like he added an L to it. That threw me off. And then Dante is, Dante, but his hair is different. And No, when they meet, I thought it was cool. I actually really liked the acting in this. I liked how they portrayed Dante as a dick, but he obviously cared about the humans the entire time, and that was his big selling point, was that he was very compassionate, even though he was, a lady killer and hot stuff, doesn't care about anything.
That's one of the strengths that Ninja Theory brings, right? Like, I don't think this is sort of the kind of plot that you will take 100% seriously, but
No.
the way that they tell stories and the way they use cutscenes is very efficient in a way. Like, and they have lots of scenes where in a game someone would say something, but in this game you kind of tell what they're thinking based on the facial expression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that goes a lot to the technology. Obviously has advanced since the last Devil May Cry game, so they're able to use motion capture and these real actors.
Right, but they're coming at it. They have a different eye for these things. Like, I mean, like there will be a sort of a question, and he'll just sort of make a certain kind of face and blow it off, and like you'll kind of get what he's saying without having the dialogue be, "I think you're stupid. I'm walking out right now because I am apathetic toward the situation."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though he did have some pretty funny one-liners that I could have done.
He does have some very good ones, and they're as terrible as they should be.
They're terrible. It's great. Yeah, it's the best thing.
So that's obviously one of the best things that Ninja Theory does, is those character models and sort of the cinematic way that they shoot those games. But the issue that people have always had with them is how, and the police are here to agree with me apparently. Los Angeles, ladies and gentlemen. It's always how their games tend to be very short. I mean, wasn't their last game like 4 hours long? Or it's always been a sticking point with them, and their games are really these short experiences. Is that an issue here too?
I don't think so. I think their games are really shallow experiences up until this game.
Right. I could say that. I could see that. Yeah, but this one does have a lot of depth, and it's not short. It's not necessarily like, it's not Skyrim. It's not going to be super long, but it was a satisfying length, I guess. Ooh, is that awkward to say?
And we're back to the beginning of the show.
I'm sorry.
It's like, I think you'll probably spend about 6 to 8 hours getting through it the first time, and it's obviously designed to be replayed on more difficulty levels, and you go back to earlier missions to play it with different weapons, unlock different doors. Like, there's a lot of secrets to go back to.
There's a lot of stuff to unlock, yeah.
So the reason why I brought that up, because that's always a question that I hear at like press events that I hate when people ask, like, how long is your game? Because that seems to matter, and that's a really stupid question. How long is a string?
Yeah.
I really think that that's a dumb question, but the reason why I'm bringing it up is because it seems like one of the things that a lot of people might try to put up against this game, because if you read the comments to the review, people just immediately hate this game, many of which have not even played it. The game's not out yet. Or the game, did it just come out?
It came out when the review went up, so...
Okay. So... Yeah. What is it like? I'm sure you've looked at some of the comments. What are some of the sticking points that the people in the comments have that maybe you can talk about to alleviate some of those fears or assuage some of those fears?
So
massage.
Let me massage your fears.
Assuage.
I'll assuage. Yeah. So actually, I had an interesting experience playing this game because one of my friends is one of the people who hates this reboot. We have almost ended our friendship over this, and I've told him I played more of the game than you, so you have to shut up now, but it didn't work. So I made him sit next to me for the first 4 hours I played the game, so he could kind of see that it wasn't as much of a train wreck as he thought, hopefully. And hey, it wasn't.
There is a train wreck in the game, though.
There is a train wreck. A few, even. Yeah. So he didn't watch that.
Spoilers, you guys.
Oh, sorry. So he was sitting there and pretty much telling me everything the internet has to say about DMC as I'm playing it. There's no lock-on. That is an issue for a lot of people. I honestly didn't have any problem with it. There's a soft lock-on, and that worked fine for me. In a few of the battles, the fighting does get a little clunky, and I think a lock-on could have helped that, but it wasn't in any way something that I desperately wished was in the game or anything that really detracted. It truly wasn't. So that wasn't something I missed.
Yeah, confession, I never use lock-on in any games.
Well, there you go. Because you're hardcore. Or you're a hipster? I don't know. So that was fine for me. And then he had a big problem with the wig scene, too, where there's that little Easter egg kind of thing. And Dante throws on a white wig for a second and then says, "Not in a million years." It's very funny. Ha ha ha. But I think it shows that Ninja Theory really was kind of making this as an homage, truly did respect the source material, because by the end, it's clear that all of the jokes aside, they do take it seriously. And there is a bit that kind of ties in this whole hair and visual issue and says, okay, here you go. And I think that was very classy. It was nice to see. So I think that could help some people too. The aerial attacks I didn't think were necessarily easy, and that was a lot of people were saying, oh, they made it too accessible. They're trying to bring in too large of an audience. They made the game too easy. It's easy. I'll give them that. It's not necessarily the hardest Devil May Cry game. If you played Devil May Cry,
I've been playing on the third difficulty level that you get at the beginning, which is Nephilim.
Play on Nephilim, definitely.
And it's definitely not difficult, but I do feel like there's a ramp up in difficulty that I didn't feel was present in the previous games, which is when you get to the later stages, like the enemies are pretty tough. They'll fight you back. I think it's very difficult to concentrate on A, beating them effectively, B, not getting hit, and C, still showing a lot of variety in the way that you fight them. Because by the end of the game, you're usually switching between 5-6 different weapons in one battle.
Oh yeah, easily. Yeah, and they layer. That's what I do touch on this, because I talk a lot about the fighting in the review, because I feel like that's really the crux of the game. Like that's it. So they layer enemies very well. You'll take on a huge, like a mini boss almost, and then you'll be like, oh, that was really hard, that sucked. And then the next round, you're fighting that boss and another mini boss and a bunch of lesser bosses, and it's like, okay, so here we go. And it's definitely fulfilling if you're looking for a good fighting game.
Yeah, I feel like the meat bag factor has been turned down in this game a little bit. Like some of the enemies are pretty good at hurting you.
Yeah.
I feel like, especially in the first Devil May Cry, like there were a lot of enemies that were just kind of like there to stand around and let you juggle them and shoot them, and didn't really attempt to kill you.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Haven't there been enemies in a Devil May Cry game that were literal meat bags?
Probably.
That sounds familiar.
Probably. There's one called Butcher in this one, so maybe that. But no, the enemies are varied and lovely. But I would definitely
one really cool enemy that you fight a few times throughout the game. That's quite a challenge.
Pyramid.
You're the one that I'm talking about, Jess. Like it's really late in the game.
With the really fast
person
one.
who can block your attacks and can interrupt your combos.
Hate that one. And that one makes an appearance later in the game a lot. And it's like they don't turn his difficulty down each time. It's just he's just there, and you have to fight him again and again and again. And it's wonderful. But they do. No, the weapons are great. The Arbiter, like the demon weapons, I did find a little slow, but they deal out a lot of damage when you use them. So it does come down to this timing, and it is difficult to get a triple S still, because you do have to switch through all these weapons, and the timing is very sensitive. But yeah, if you've played Devil May Cry before, start on Nephilim, and you'll have more fun. And there's plenty to uncover. There were plenty of keys I didn't get, and lost souls I didn't save, and doors I didn't open. So I'll play through on Son of Sparta.
And just to give some people an idea of how it works, basically you've got angel weapons mapped to your left trigger and demon weapons mapped to your right trigger. And you can equip different angel and demon weapons even while you're using those respective weapons. And if you don't hold the down trigger, you're just using your regular sword, and you've got a button mapped to different guns. And so ideally you will switch between weapons depending on what you want to do. Like you have to have a sort of mini strategy every time you start fighting. So like, am I going up? Am I going to pull enemies up toward me? Am I going to pull myself down? Am I going to smash down? Am I going to push people away from me? I mean, a lot of the thought that goes into it is a bit like a fighting game. And I think that's also the source of why people are so passionate and upset whenever you change something dramatic. It's the same thing that would happen if they, rebooted Street Fighter.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think this game is maybe not as technical as previous games, but I think the overall game, all things considered, it's a better game than some of the previous Devil May Cry entries. The level design is really creative. It's really visually
very
imaginative.
Pretty. Yeah.
I think they get the tone of Dante a lot. It's like the new Spider-Man movie. It's like the same character, but I feel like this one is more believable as a. You're not supposed to like him per se, but.
But But you
the
are on
way
his side in the
he's
end,
presented.
even though he's a dick. Yeah.
Is better.
So has been the hatred just sorry, Jordan, but has
cool.
the hatred just simply been because he's a remodeled character and people just don't like his new style? I mean,
No,
that was
I don't think so.
Well, that was the original concern. The original concern was like, this isn't Dante. This doesn't look like Dante. We don't know who this person is. They're screwing it up.
That's what caused the reactionary response. This like gut reaction of, oh my gosh, he looks so different. This can't be right. But I think a lot of it does stem from Capcom giving it to Ninja Theory. But Capcom specifically said, we want a Western take on Devil May Cry. So we gave it to a Western developer. Ninja Theory is UK. And so I think it was a lot of just feeling like this franchise was being spun out of player control. Not that players ever had control over it, because it's Capcom's franchise. They can do whatever they want. But, I had something, then it was gone.
Well, I mean, I don't understand. I guess I could understand that with Heavenly Sword, because I thought that was a terrible game.
I liked Heavenly Sword.
Well,
Counterpoint.
It's very polarizing.
Counterpoint, I liked it. But Enslaved, I thought, was a really fantastic title. I mean, Enslaved was great, but no one purchased that game at all. I think I bought the copy that they sold. I mean, like, that's how many people bought it. And so I don't really understand what the fear was when they took over. I mean, they have proven that they can do very good games. I mean, what I liked about Heavenly Sword was the performance capture and the storytelling. I thought was really well done.
Right.
Enslaved got me with the combat. So I thought like marrying those two concepts together into one game and using an established brand would have been exciting for people.
Right. I mean, well, Capcom is still involved here. Like the producers or like the director of Devil May Cry 3 he worked on this game. Like it's not entirely Ninja Theory. So it really is a good collaboration. Like Ninja Theory is bringing the storytelling chops that the franchise has never had. I'm sorry, I know people love the stories in previous Devil May Cry games, but this is a completely different feel. It's more enjoyable, I think. It's not particularly brilliant, but it is. I know it's just like the methods of storytelling are a lot better.
And I do like the inspirations they draw on. I mean, they're poking fun at major media corporations and the man basically, and that's fun. It's a lot of fun, and it fits Dante perfectly.
Yeah,
like,
it's very
great.
based on They Live, which is a movie about aliens who have infiltrated the world, and we don't notice it, even though it's everywhere in popular media.
Yeah.
And there's basically a level that's like an episode of Futurama.
Yeah.
What?
Don't drink Slurm.
They do. Yeah, the Slurm, that was a bit close to home there. Yeah.
That's something that I did not expect.
So, as someone who has never played a Devil May Cry game ever, should I go back and play one of the other ones first, or can I just jump in with this
No,
one?
you can just jump in.
Just jump in. It's a game. It's just
it's a reboot.
game on its own. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
fine. You're totally fine.
But just like, wouldn't you say it is like, so I mean, some of the criticisms about the positive reception of this game have some basis. So like, wouldn't you say that it's odd that you refill Devil Trigger with soy milkshakes? And
Yes, that
one
is
of your
so
weapons
strange.
is a used record.
Yep, and when you put your hipster glasses on, you can see Limbo, the demon world. That was a weird choice. I don't know why.
And
That
instead of a
Also,
motorcycle, he has
it's the only way-
just a
it's
regular
the only way-
bicycle with wooden handlebar.
yeah, it's
Also,
a fixie. So
with the hipster glasses, it's the only way you can finish Fez too, and finish reading the Joystiq
decodes
top
the
10.
language.
Fezzes are cool. It was
That's
weird because
smart.
I found myself comparing Devil May Cry to Fez in my head just because they came out at the beginning of the year, and it's a game that not a lot of people were willing to like. It's strange that indie downloadable title would be comparable to DMC in any way, but apparently it is.
Well, I mean, the blowback on Fez was not that people thought they were going to not like it. It was just because that game had been
Forever.
development since I was in the womb. Like, that game is...
And they didn't like Silphish.
Zap Tomatoes, 5 years old.
It's like it took forever for that game to finally come out. And also, they had also won a bunch of awards. Every year they'd won, like they'd be nominated for an IGF award or something else.
And they'd win it, yeah.
Weren't you guys here 7 years ago when we started this? Like this, I mean, that was part of the blowback there. I think the reason why a lot of people, other than Ichabod Crane here on Joystiq, commenter says that he thinks the negativity is just because people forgot how to be fun and have
How to be happy and have
how to
fun.
be happy and have fun on the internet, which is fine, which is also true. but I think it's a lot to do with when you start tinkering with those established brands, people assume want it to be a certain thing, and when things start changing, they start to freak out a little bit.
I mean, there's a lot of emotional investment in games.
Yeah,
Which is good.
I feel like that sometimes when if they're gonna make a movie out of a novel that I like or a comic book series that I like, sometimes you get worried because I like certain aspects of that, so that may not shine through. But I feel like this is getting positive reviews. One of the commenters I saw on the review was like, seems like a lot of people are being ungenerously popular, are being generous about the reviews on this because they seem to think that it's a good game. And someone even replied maybe it's because it's a good game. Maybe they did it. And then you'd think that people who were upset about the entire situation, about this brand going to a different studio and starting over again, would be concerned that it would be a bad game. But it seems like a lot of people do not want to accept the fact that it is a good game, whether or not they've played it.
And you have to be very careful when you discuss people like this because you don't want to be insulting to them, or because they like what they like. But the fear is that this game is not representative of what people like about Devil May Cry, which I think people like Jess and I will disagree on because we see plenty of the stuff that we liked before that lives in this game, and there's a lot of stuff that hasn't been in this game that now feels very welcome, like the sort of very creative environments and that kind of thing. You're no longer running around a gothic castle for the whole game.
It's like Blade Runner. I don't know why that kept flipping in my head.
Right, but at the same time, it's like you also have to remember that Capcom and Ninja Theory, they're not making a game just for you. Like, it's not like they could make a hyper technical, incredibly difficult 60 frames a second Devil May Cry game, but that would not be the purposes of a reboot. The reboot is to get more people to play it, more people interested. And I mean, we've already had our games. Like, we don't need stuff made specifically just for us and be upset when they go for a wider audience. Like, more people will enjoy this, I think, in the end. You just have to try to be reasonable about it. And and the same thing happens with Silent Hill. Like, if it's a game that's in any way not a remake of Silent Hill 2 in some way, people flip out. Like Shattered Memories, that was one of the examples I used. It was it's a completely different game, great Silent Hill game, but how dare you reimagine the first game?
Yeah, it's fair. Yeah,
Silent Hill is an apt comparison, I think, because that also left the original team and went somewhere else, and with mixed results. But so the real thing, and I think that this is probably the most important issue about Devil May Cry, at least to me, is whether Dante or Bayonetta would win in a fight.
Well, that's not fair at all.
No.
So...
Well, I think Bayonetta is a better game. I will say that. But it doesn't mean that I think DMC is a bad game.
No.
I think they're both really good action games.
I think we really know what you're trying to say.
I'm saying Bayonetta is Devil May Cry 5.
Oh, we have one vote for Bayonetta in the comments, so apparently Bayonetta wins.
Perfect.
Oh, well.
Well, I'm not talking about the games, like just the characters.
Oh, the characters.
Like Dante and Bayonetta, if they threw down.
They would just
It'd be a long fight.
I don't even think they would fight. They wouldn't even fight.
Yeah,
it's an impossible situation.
It's a real Superman Batman situation. So the reason why I wanted to bring up sort of the expectation or reaction to what the game is going to be, it's because Grand Theft Auto is coming out this year, and I know, Jordan, you've been playing Saints Row the Third, and I've been playing Grand Theft Auto 4 again with a bunch of mods that change a lot of things about that game. So I kind of want to go over some of the things that you really enjoy about Saints Row the Third that you'd like to see in Grand Theft Auto 5. Like we just talked about people having certain expectations for Devil May Cry. Now let's create some expectations for what you want a Grand Theft Auto to be. Like, first of all, are you a Sandbox gamer? Like, do you like those games?
I do. I like the idea of a sandbox game. The thing about sandbox games for me that determines whether or not it ends up being fun is just how much leeway the game design gives you, and basically how creative the game allows you to be at any given point. And so, like, with Grand Theft Auto, I felt, and I haven't played a Grand Theft Auto game since Vice City. I think that was the last one that I went through. But my issue with those games was always that no matter what you did in the storyline, your ability to be creative in the world was always kind of the same, And so what always happened is that I would get bored with the story because it took itself, pretty seriously, even in the kind of goofy games like Vice City that had like some comedy in it. It was still like a serious crime drama. And so I would get bored with the story, use cheats to get the weapons and the, unlimited health or whatever, and then just do stuff, But like Saints Row the Third, I bought it because it was on a Steam sale, and I honestly didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. But the thing about it that I really liked was that it was the only Sandbox game I think I've ever played that I was playing because I wanted to advance the story and not because I just wanted more toys to play with in the Sandbox stuff. But
was it because the story was like not realistic, that it was because it was crazy? Like, what was it about the story that you actually pulled you in?
Well, the fact that Jennifer Hale, it was the voice of my character, helped a whole lot. That helped out. But the main thing was just like there's never anything that happens in the story in Saints Row the Third that isn't worth your time, pretty much. And so it's like even like regular like missions that you go on, there's something about it that's ridiculous or funny or weird or hilarious. Like there's some reason why it's worth doing. And I never got that in Grand Theft Auto games. But the main thing about Saints Row that I really like is that its progression system for your character. Like the way that it's set up is you can unlock, like you can hold more ammo at once, or you take less damage from explosions or whatever. But the longer you're in it, eventually you get to the point where it's like, okay, now you don't take any damage at all from anything, and now all your guns have unlimited ammo. And because like that's the point of these games, is that you want to be able to do whatever you want, and Saints Row is the only Sandbox game that I've ever played that felt like it was designed to really let you do that.
The thing that bothers me about Sandbox games, and Sleeping Dogs did this, and Saints Row does this, and Grand Theft Auto has done this and started this, which is, if you want to progress the story, you have to go to this icon or wait for these icons to show up, and then you drive to the icon, and then you sort of start the story that way. It's not really seamless. The thing that I like Saints Row did was there were even missions in it where you would do something crazy, and then that's how you unlock the ability to do these side missions. Like,
right.
And it would introduce you to these things rather than just throwing all of these icons in the world and sort of just telling you to go and find it on your own.
Right. Because that's
a little bit too.
Yeah, that's overkill. Because it's like, okay, well, I did the intro quest that taught me about my character, and now the world is populated with all this stuff. And it's like I have no idea what to go do, or like it's too much, And you're right, Saints Row did it in a really clever way where the story would progressively unlock different side missions that you could go do, like the helicopter assault stuff and the tank thing, and the Professor Genki gauntlets, which are like the best part of that whole game.
Right.
But
the thing with Saints Row is that it kind of took the split where San Andreas was sort of the craziest, I think, of the Grand Theft Auto series, because you were doing all this, like, you were skydiving and jumping out of planes, and it was sort of fantastical. GTA 4, when that came out, was way more realistic, and it just seems like it's getting more and more realistic as that series progresses, whereas Saints Row is going in the opposite direction. So do you prefer the alternate route that Saints Row is taking, where they are actually going crazy, and it's just all about having fun, and nothing makes sense, and that's fine with you?
Yeah, I think that's my preferred methodology for this kind of game, because, like, the point of a Sandbox game is that it lets you do what you want, and it lets you have fun and be creative. And if the world that Sandbox doesn't reflect that, then I get less out of it. So like I can be as ridiculous and drive a car, off a bridge as many times as I want in a Grand Theft Auto game, but Saints Row gives me an achievement for it or whatever, right? Like, yeah.
No, so what you're saying is if Grand Theft Auto 5 came with plastic figurines of each of the characters, and you put them on a portal to put them in the game, you would like that? That's what I think you're saying.
Yes.
Think, okay.
Yeah,
so
that's exactly what I'm
we'll
saying. Basically, what I want
Disney
is
Infinity. Yeah.
Yeah, I want a Grand Theft Auto game that has a $70 plastic disc.
Please.
and then I can go buy figures of Cousin Nico and like a sports car, and then put it on there.
And think of the fun that Saints Row, if we got the Saints Row mentality in there to make plastic figures.
This is going somewhere that I don't want it to go to.
What?
That's $1 million idea. That could save THQ.
You're welcome.
Oh man. So
I kind of get the feeling that you would take the opposite approach. That you take the more realistic stuff.
A few people in the comments are saying that maybe they think they're in the minority, that that GTA is probably not the preferred between the two. I actually prefer GTA. As much as Saints Row is hilarious and sort of outlandish, I kind of like the realistic grittiness of Grand Theft Auto that has sort of been established with Grand Theft Auto 4 in the last couple of years, and also going into the episodes, which I thought were very well told. Like the stories were very well told, and the characters were really well represented. And I feel like that those two pieces of DLC and GTA 4 sort of taught Rockstar, hey, people really like differing viewpoints or different perspectives on this entire city, because it's such a huge landscape for one person to experience everything. And when you're experiencing so many different things as one person, you sort of lose that flair. But if you introduce multiple characters that have different experiences within that world, then it gives you differing viewpoints from everyone who sort of experiencing that city or who lives in that city. Because San Andreas, where the new game takes place, is huge. And I don't know if it's as big as San Andreas was, or if it's bigger than the original San Andreas, but that was already like daunting. Like there was you would have to, if you wanted to drive to the country, you would be driving in a car in Grand Theft Auto, which already is iffy if you don't like the driving system, for like 20 minutes. And like some of that stuff is just not fun. And so it's easier for them to sort of jump between these three characters, because there's three characters in Grand Theft Auto 5. I think that I'm excited to see what they're going to do with that, because really they have been sort of out of the game for the last couple of years, and this genre has sort of been taken over by the craziness that is San Andreas or Saints Row, and Sleeping Dogs is a really good game in that genre as well. I mean, even other sandbox games exist, like Batman, that allow you to do whatever you want in the world as you're freaking Batman.
How do you compete with being Batman?
It's true.
Yeah. I think having more characters might help, and I'll give Grand Theft Auto 5 a try, because it has been a really long time since I played one, and so gameplay-wise, it's probably evolved more than I give it credit for. But one of the things about Saints Row is that it was the first like crime sandbox game that I ever played where I legitimately liked the character that I was, and like cared about the story and the other characters, because like the world and the characters all felt like they had personality, and it was something that Grand Theft Auto games never did for me. It was just like, oh, I'm a guy, I've got a Hawaiian shirt, but
but I mean, wouldn't you say there's like just in general a better alignment, because Saints Row has such a lighthearted tone? There's a better alignment between the character, like what he wants to do and what he can do, versus Grand Theft Auto, which is usually it's pretty serious at this point.
Right. Yeah,
but, like, and none of what you want to do is serious in any way. Like it contradicts what the whole character is about. So you have a little more wiggle room in Saints Row.
A lot of the stuff in Grand Theft Auto 4 that kind of gets hit on now is, well, you were this guy who's trying to escape this life, and then when you play as that character, you can go blow up, a bunch of cars and just terrorize the city. But in the next cutscene, he's like, "Oh, I need to get out of this game."
Yeah, and it's kind of ignored, but I feel like it's easier to sort of write in the blanks in Saints Row, because right from the outset, it's pretty ridiculous.
It's because Saints Row is a cartoon, really. I mean, like, I mean that's sort of the world. It's an adult cartoon. Like they've sort of created this universe where people are dying, but things are blowing up, but it's hilarious. It's never, the characters never sit in a moment of like solitude where they're trying to figure out exactly who they are or what they're doing with their lives. And that's
it's a Wile E. Coyote cartoon, basically.
Yeah. And Grand Theft Auto sort of gets. I mean, the same thing happened with Sleeping Dogs. Sleeping Dogs was, I was driving to get a mission from a cop who told me about a serial killer that's killed 4 people. But on my way there, I hit like 9 people on the road. It's like I have to worry about the serial killer who's only killed 4.
That's why it's dangerous to have like a speaking fully written protagonist sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I mean, if he didn't say anything and it was just you, then you can at least fill in the blanks yourself. And you're like, well, he's a really terrible driver. He's basically from Police Squad.
That's the backstory. I also think that their connection to the Saints Row character, though, might have a lot to do with the fact that you've created that character.
Right.
It's a customizable character.
That part of the game alone is pretty fun. I mean, they released it standalone.
Yeah, and it's you can create grotesque. Like, remember that post we had with Mass Effect 3 shepherds? It was just like monsters of space. Like, you can do that on purpose for fun in Saints Row, and it totally ties in with the world
throughout the whole game.
Yeah, and the zombie voice thing is really hilarious because there's a scene at the beginning of Saints Row, in case anybody hasn't played it, where you and one of the other characters are singing along to a Sublime song while you're on your way to like the first mission. And if you choose the zombie voice, they still sing along in the zombie voice, and it's really amazing. But yeah, the character that's a good point, Zav. The character creation in that game is really full featured in it. It's a good like kind of microcosm for the idea that goes in that everything else in the game is based on, and that it lets you do pretty much whatever you want. And there's no restrictions on guys can wear these clothes and girls can wear these clothes. Like everybody can wear all the clothes. And when you're selecting skin tone, like it goes through like metallic shades of blue and like just like you could do whatever you want, and it doesn't take itself seriously at all. And I think that's probably what does it for me about
it. Because in Saints Row you can do whatever you want because you are that character, but in Grand Theft Auto or even Sleeping Dogs, you're sort of playing as this established role. Like this person has a story, it has this narrative that you have to go through that is very deep and personal, and a lot of it pulls in on that person's history that you don't really know, that you have to learn on the way. So when you're doing all these crazy things, it seems out of place because you don't know that character. You're just learning about that character as the game progresses. But in Saints Row, you're sort of crafting that entire backstory while you're playing it.
Mm-hmm.
The only backstory that Saints Row really had was at the end of Saints Row 1, where you were on a boat and it blew up, and then Saints Row 2 started. It was, hey, you survived, but you're horribly disfigured, and now you get to do plastic surgery, and that's the customization. But
maybe that's where
sex, which is weird. So
maybe that's where BioWare got the idea for Mass Effect 2, because that started out pretty much the same way.
Pretty much. Oh yeah, that is actually true. The Shepherd in Space is a really easy way to do it.
Jess, what were you gonna say?
Yeah.
Oh, GTA 5 is gonna have 3 main characters. Yeah. So the story is probably going to be even deeper because it's going to have to tie in all 3 of these different personalities into one, and you're going to be able to play as all 3 of them, right? If I remember that correctly. So, I mean, that's going to be harder? Is that going to be better or worse to you guys? Do you think? Because it sounds like Saints Row more free, or this one which is more.
I don't know. I think it's going to be. I mean, if you think about it, the way that they did GTA 4 and how the episodes tied into those,
right,
and how Nico sort of like is heard of in the background or even seen, I think, at one point in the background, like that stuff weaves in together. So I think that is going to be interesting, but you are always going to be playing Rockstar's game. It's their story that you're playing through. Whereas in Saints Row, I feel like you have more freedom to be like, hey, I want to do this because the world is fun and I can do whatever it is that I want. You have way more freedom to sort of craft that narrative experience. It's sort of like when you're playing Skyrim. Like the story in Elder Scrolls games is never great, but the stories that people tell each other when they play that game is like, oh man, this happened to me and I bumped into these people. It's like you have those same experiences when you play Saints Row. I don't feel like you have
that kind of game. That's a much more important aspect. Much more. That's the story.
Yeah.
Like ideally, you try to get a blend of both. Like I think Dishonored did a good job of getting.
It's the narrative that you kind of make for your character and make for your experience. It's like you're giving a narrative perspective on what your entire experience was playing the game. Whereas when you talk about Grand Theft Auto, no one really tells people about like, oh man, this crazy mission happened. Well, yeah, I played it too because I'm playing Grand Theft Auto. It's like crazy things don't really happen in GTA 4 anymore.
Oh man, did you shoot that guy?
Yeah,
I did. I shot all those guys.
Yeah.
All the guys were shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in that case, it's like the a good story is based on what you can do and not what happens to you, basically. And I think sometimes Rockstar doesn't get that balance right. Like they focus more on what happens to you versus what you can do.
I mean, sometimes it works out fine because Red Dead Redemption, I thought, was a
well. I mean,
that was good.
Shang-Chi is one of their strongest games.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
completely linear.
Yeah. Or Bully, I thought that was a really great game too.
What about LA Noire? Where's that? Because I thought the driving in that was the worst.
No.
By the way,
Right, that is a really good example of something that really, in that super serious context, like that narrative that they're trying to convey, why nobody acknowledges why he's pretty much the worst driver on planet
he's the
Earth.
worst. Yeah.
Well,
Like,
no,
as soon as, like, who
you have
would
to
ever give him
understand
the
cars
call?
back then were just terrible. Like,
They were
not handle
huge,
well.
they were
Just have a
clunky.
throwaway line if someone's like, oh, I'm not getting into the car with Phelps. You know how he drives.
Yeah, right. That'd be great.
Well, I mean, if we want to talk about
that had a terrible story for a video, and like that was a terrible game because of the story.
yeah, I didn't like that game
okay.
at all. No,
I never finished it. I couldn't. So that I guess says how I liked it. Yeah.
I mean, if we want to talk about like what is the term that Clint Hawking created for it? Ludonarrative dissonance, I think is the term where like the gameplay and the narrative don't match or they kind of conflict with the two aspects. I feel like that game does that all the time. There were moments where like you run into an alleyway to chase a guy, and it's like pull out your gun and shoot him. So I pull it out and shoot him in the leg. The cutscene starts, and I got a perfect headshot. In the cutscene. It's like that's not what I like because that is sort of what Rockstar does. I know Rockstar didn't actually create that game. They published that game, but it is like they have a narrative that they want to tell. They have a story that you have to play through that you don't have really a lot of control over.
Right.
And that's sort of, if it works out well, like in Red Dead Redemption, it's perfect and it's fantastic and it's great. But in, LA Noire, it doesn't really work well because there are established elements of how this person's supposed to be a good guy, and I didn't want to kill this guy in the alleyway, but the story is he does kill someone. So it breaks a lot. Forced
failure is never a good idea because you have to force yourself to be an idiot, basically.
Yeah.
Like, I remember there was in Batman Arkham Asylum, there's a moment where you walk into a room and there's a guy stuck in a chair in the middle of it, and if you use detective vision, you see there's a bunch of people above you waiting to ambush you.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been smart, you figured that out, so how can you be smarter than Batman at that point? But what they did in the cutscene is Batman acknowledges, he's like, I know this is a trap.
Yeah.
But he does it anyway.
He was like surprised, and you had to willfully walk into a trap that is obviously a trap. That's dumb. Like, it happens in a bunch of the Resident Evil games. It happens in Red Dead Redemption, where it's like he's obviously walking into a trap, but you can't do anything about it.
Or it happens in
Dishonored, where that happens as well.
It also happens in a game that you just finished, which is Black Ops 2. There was a moment in Black Ops 2 where you were forced to make a decision and kill someone, and
because the character, but you're smart. You can't be smarter than the character. Like,
yeah. And it breaks the experience when that happens, and I feel like a lot of games make that mistake. Like,
and if you do go that way, then there should be an option. Like, there should be an option for you to not do it, to outsmart the situation, and then there's always ways to bring you back to where the developers want you to be.
Yeah, because the twists and turns in games like Black Ops are never shocking. It's always you're waiting for it to happen. Like, when someone turns on you, you're like, yeah, we saw that coming. It doesn't feel as epic as I think the developers want it to feel, so it just breaks the experience. I think that's a lot of the reason why.
Like, here's this alcoholic beverage. You should drink it immediately, and none of us will be drinking our beverages. But do enjoy.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I think
it's like press right trigger to drink, and it's like you should be able to not do that. And maybe someone else knocks you over the head or something. Like, you can still get you to the same place, but don't make me the idiot. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Well, Dishonored does that really well too, because in Dishonored, I mean, for example, there's the one part of the game where you have to kill someone who's having a meeting with another person. And
you have to kill people in Dishonored? That doesn't.
I know, it's so weird. But you don't have to technically do it. You just have to get that. You have to put that person in a position where they can't make a choice later in the game. I don't want to ruin it for anyone. But the thing that's cool about that experience is that you are not waiting for the game to do something to your character. You are making the decision what happens to other characters in the world, and you can, poison the person. You can knock them out and bring them somewhere else. You don't necessarily need to murder anyone to accomplish that task. Deus Ex, the original Deus Ex, did this really well as well. Human Revolution didn't do it quite as much or very well, actually. Mm-hmm. But Dishonored did a really great job with that. So yeah, it's I think it's
Except for the drinking example I just used.
so
There's a one of the main problems I had with the Persona 4 fighting game. I haven't played Golden yet, but Persona 4 Arena, like it's like overall it has a really amazing story mode and it does really interesting things that fighting games usually don't do. But one of the main problems is that you have to play through different characters' stories like sequentially, and then the real ending unlocks afterwards. But all the character stories take place at the same time, so you'll get through one character's story, find out a whole bunch of stuff about their situation, and then have to sit through another character's story where they don't know any of this stuff that's happening, but you know all of it. And so all the mystery is gone, and your whole experience of it's like the most extreme example of player knowledge exceeding character knowledge that I've ever seen in a game, and it was infuriating a lot of the time.
So I wanted to read you off some of the mods that people have created for GTA 4 over the last couple of years. So obviously there's things that just make the game look better, but then there are things that make it look way more realistic. So for example, shifting the entire city to look more like New York, which is basically the setting of Liberty City anyway. And then there are things like in order to get the money that you earn, you have to actually go to the ATM and take money out, and you can't carry the $1 million in your pocket like you do in every Grand Theft Auto game, so making it more realistic. A lot of these mods seem to be just making the game as realistic as possible. One mod called Cautious Drivers actually make people lock their doors so you can't just run up to them while they're driving on the street, open the door and throw them out. Then there are other mods that actually make you have to drive.
So basically the commentary is like people who live in these cities that Grand Theft Auto games take place in, there's a lot of hubris among the populace. You're teaching them a lesson.
Exactly.
By just taking their vehicles.
I think it's really interesting because I would look at mods for Saints Row, and I don't think I'd ever see a mod like this one where it makes everyone have to follow the rules of the road. If you run a red light, you'll get pulled over. Like, that stuff's never going to happen in Saints Row.
No, you can straight up crash into cops in Saints Row, and it does not tick up the police tracker thing. They're just like, oh, whatever. It happens every day. Yeah.
It's really interesting because a lot of these mods that I've been installing to play Grand Theft Auto again, and it's really just to sort of see how the world changes. I don't really want to play the story anymore, but it's really interesting how many of these mods are just trying to make the game as realistic as possible, which is sort of the direction that series is going in. Whereas if you look at fan-made mods for Saints Row, I don't know if Saints Row the Third actually has mod tools. I think the second one did, but it's probably going to be more outlandish stuff, like, hey, let's make jetpacks and all this other crazy nonsense stuff that was pulled out of Grand Theft Auto.
Really cool combinations, though. Like, you could have everything be realistic except for gravity.
Well, there are a lot of like GTA 4 mods that like turn the main character into a horse and stuff too, right? So people
are
having
the best
fun
animated GIFs
going around like last week of someone playing as a horse.
Yeah, there's that one. There's
someone, and then the car just clips through the ground and sinks away, and it's like such
a submarine.
Like, if you have played video games, that's the funniest thing ever, because that is what a video game is.
So there's one GTA mod and there are crazy ones too. There's one that allows you to be a cop, but there's also one that allows you to be the Hulk.
Ooh.
Or you can be Iron Man, and like someone modeled Iron Man.
Hulk Ultimate Destruction reference here.
Exactly. You can be Iron Man and fly throughout the city and use your weapons just like Iron Man can.
Tons of good Iron Man games.
Oh man, so many. That Kinect one that came out recently, the fighting one, that was
amazing. I think that's kind of like, I think that's the only thing that would make me be really interested in a Grand Theft Auto game again. Is if they were like, okay, we're gonna, like, our story is trying for realism, so let's just go whole hog on gameplay realism and like make it a super, not necessarily confined, but like a really intense, like almost role-playing experience where it's like stealing a car is like a legitimately dangerous thing that you have to do, and like there are consequences for it if you do it in the wrong place or at the wrong time, and like you have to stay under the cops' radar, and not run red lights or speed, or like make it kind of like how the original Driver was, where like you had to obey traffic laws, otherwise the cops would get onto you. Like, make the things that your character does have weight and importance, because they don't, and that's counterintuitive based on how heavy the story is, or not counterintuitive, but they don't line up.
Yeah, I think what I would really like from that entire experience of realistic sandbox adventure games is sort of what I kind of wanted LA Noire to be, or what Agent, that Rockstar game that never came out and never will come out, what I thought it could be, which is it'd be great if you could live in the world of Grand Theft Auto and crime is just happening and then you have to go and investigate. Like in Grand Theft Auto you can run over 1 million people and then some ambulance guy comes and picks up the body and then it's over. Like there's no crime scene, there's no investigation. Like I think that stuff would be really interesting. I really wanted LA Noire to be that. I wanted to be the detective to learn things. But that game was so structured and the clues were so perfectly placed that the only like interesting part about it was trying to have interactions with people in interrogations.
Right. Mystery is one of the elements that is not. It's pretty rare in games. Like, and it's a great element of some of the best movies.
Mm-hmm.
But games are very anti-mystery because you usually start out with a tutorial, and there's no. They give you all the tools to succeed. The whole world is built for you to succeed. Yeah. So where does the mystery come from?
And if it's not, then players get upset and they stop playing. I think that's the thing, is finding the balance where
we had a little dot on our screen telling us where to go at all times.
Right. Well, except for like in The Walking Dead when you're in the convenience store and you don't know what to do. See, that was frustrating because you can spend like hours in that little store wondering what you're supposed to do, even though everything is clearly labeled. Yeah.
Where the hell is the key for the store?
It's outside.
Yeah. Well, see, and then the problem with that is the game doesn't really hint at it all too well, because in order to get to the key, you need to leave the location where you know the key is.
Yeah. I mean, it's a hard balance to hit then, to have that mystery and feel like the player is actually finding things, and make sure it's accessible to every player. That's hard to do.
And in that Walking Dead example, that's a design issue, because you need to be able to tell. You need to be able to. It's show, don't tell. Like the best gaming experiences I've ever had have been ones where the game designer, the level designer, whatever, has shown me where I need to be or what I need to be doing or where I should go without putting a nav point on the thing. And that was something that we talked about this in the Game of the Year video podcast. That's something that Journey did really well. Never had any doubt as to where I was supposed to go or what I was doing in Journey, but Journey has
put a big dot on your screen.
Yeah, Journey has no interface whatsoever except for, boom.
Right. I mean, well, Journey works out really well because the game establishes sort of your end point. Like the game starts with you looking at the mountain, so I guess that's where I need to go, and that is sort of, that's the beeline that you have to make, and it's the way you get there is sort of what that experience is, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how Grand Theft Auto 5 works out. It's 3 characters could make it way more convoluted, or it could actually spread things out to a point where we are getting to experience different viewpoints of everyone in this really vast city. But I don't know how it's going to work when all 3 of those characters come together. I think that's going to be the confusing part.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like, because half of me is like, oh, there's 3 characters, maybe there's a chance I'll actually like one of them this time, and then the other half of me is, oh, there's 3 characters, that means there's 300% more story for me to get bored with and give up on.
Right. Well, what they should do is like they should sort of kind of ape Inception in a way and sort of make it about them planning a heist or something. Like I think that's really fun to see, and it'll be really fun to do, to sort of spend a game building up to this collaboration.
That sounds more like Ocean's 12.
No,
or Ocean's 11, yeah.
No, Ocean's 12 specifically.
That one.
Specifically, yeah. I think that's
the.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's not worth it. Go for it.
Oh, just gave up at the end. I think that's going to do it for this segment, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us, and if you're watching, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to listen to this again and the rest of the show, it's going to be available tomorrow on Joystiq.com, along with the news segment that's being recorded later on. That will not be live, but you'll get to hear it in the podcast when it goes up tomorrow at noon.
You can pretend that it's live.
You can pretend that it's live. We dare you to pretend that it's live. Just keep commenting as you're listening. I love these comments as people are listening to the show, because if you ever go back to them, they will never make sense again, because it's comments in the moment of what's being said. So that's going to be really really fun for people to try to keep up. But thanks everyone for joining us, and thanks guys for being on this segment of the show. And I'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.